everybody, welcome back. It's the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. And just thrilled that you're here twice a week, every week. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been putting on the show to help you to be that lawyer, someone who's confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. You guys know my job is in doing business development, coaching, and training for lawyers and running peer advisory groups. And one thing we don't talk enough about is the importance of peer mastermind types of groups. And not just because I'm running one, and not just because Nathan's running one. Hey, Nathan, how you doing?
Great.
But because it's like many lawyers feel like they're on an island and they don't have a real opportunity outside of their firm to collaborate, to learn, to share, and to really get deep on subjects that could change the game for them as lawyers growing a law practice or a law firm. So we're going to jump in and have a lot of conversation about that and the value and the benefits and the takeaways. Of course, have to start off, Nathan, with our quote of the show. And this is a really good one. This one I read twice, and it was just like, oh, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. And it is, people hide inside the walls of consistency to protect themselves from the troublesome consequences of thought. That's deep, man.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I used to have it posted up in my office wall. So like I would have, employees come in and like grumble. Somebody said the rule is we can't do this. And I would just point up at the sign. It's like, oh, you're running into this issue where like people don't want to do the hard thinking and they'll use, hey, this is the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
Or this is the rules we have set up here. And so I like it because it's a really eye-opening quote about forcing you to think through like, well, why are we doing something? And really, is that the right way? And what should be the right way? And really prompting people to break the status quo when it makes sense.
And isn't that maybe even more apropos for the law firm industry, and not to pick on them, but
Absolutely.
slow moving ship.
For sure. And it's particularly, I think, relevant to folks who have made this courageous decision to work for themselves or be at a smaller firm, because probably their mindset, they were the ones in the bigger firms who had that mindset around, hey, why does it have to be this way? I'm going to go make a change. And we hear from the solos or the independent firm attorneys we deal with, where that's one of the biggest issues they had at their big firm as a cultural issue is, hey, I used to hear all the time, this is just the way things are done. And almost by definition, the people we interact with are the ones pushing back against that. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, and one of my favorite movies is Moneyball for a number of reasons, but there's a line in there, adapt or die. And I always think back to that because there's still law firms being run by, the tyrannical managing partner with the massive ego, and nobody knows what their comp is until it's bonus day at the end of the year. And how is that even existing today? I can't even imagine, but it does.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, this is a quote where it's like, it's about the people pushing back against that exact type of thing, or at least asking the question, why does it should it be this way? And if not, being constructive and at cause of pushing it to, well, what does make sense? Or I'm choosing for myself to be in a different environment or choose a different path.
Yeah. Or even get away from the billable hour. I mean, there's so much, whether it's legal tech or just people that are trying to figure out how do we provide services differently, still make great money, but change what the status quo and the way things have always been done to something new and unique and different. And I think that, that's going to eventually, take over. It's just again, a very slow moving boat, but
absolutely.
Nathan Ohler, you're the president of Newly, and we met and just had, I think, one of the best conversations and just, I don't know if it's because we share so much in common around the peer advisory groups or just because our personalities gelled, but really I was really happy and excited to get you on the show. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit about your background, because you're not a lawyer like me. I'm not a lawyer, right? We're both not lawyers, but we're both in the legal space. I think you're in and out of legal space a little bit. I'm more, I think you also work with CPAs.
Yeah, exactly. And other professional service providers servicing the business community. Right.
But legal is still a big part of your life. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So give us that Reader's Digest.
Yeah, for sure. So my background is prior to doing this business, I had worked on Wall Street early in my career. I then went to business school and worked in large Fortune 500s where I was a user of legal and professional services, and now really dedicate everything I do to working with this community of professional service providers who's made this, like we talked about earlier, made the courageous leap to be independent, whether that's solo or at a small firm. And we work to enable them in that career choice. And that can include connecting with other peers, like, and we'll talk about that coming up, I'm sure, as well as helping them run a better practice. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm passionate about. And that's what I focus on now.
Yeah. Right on. And what just so people know what Newly is and what you do exactly, just yeah, give us that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Newly is a community for experienced, independent, or solo professionals who are business focused. And the core of what we're doing is we talk about independence without trade-offs and enabling this journey of being outside of a large firm setting, but not having to make trade-offs about the things people liked. And then the two big places we plug in and assist people in our community is helping them find each other and connect with each other, as well as giving them the tools and the resources to run a more efficient and better run small firm.
Yeah. And the idea that lawyers know not everything, but they try to know everything and try to do everything themselves or figure it out is it's becoming more and more challenging. There's just too much to know.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that lawyers can get together with each other, some that have more experience in certain areas and then
Yeah.
some in others, and collaborate. And whether it's having a great facilitator like you and I, or whether
Yeah.
it's the fact that the topics are really relevant to them, there's just, I think, a lot of value in this. So let's talk a little bit about the value of peer advisory, masterminds, whatever. There's
Yeah.
half a dozen names
So
for
many
that.
terms. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So we see this within our membership and our group of folks we work with all the time. People on the first part, it's people feel isolated when they've made this choice, and so they think the issues they're seeing or going through are potentially unique to them, and so there's some value in just getting exposure. Some of it's just the catharsis of realizing, oh, there's another community of people out there like me dealing with these same issues. And not every issue is magically solvable, but hey, just to know that I'm not alone, and that we find is really powerful for our membership. And then within that, a lot of those issues are solvable and have, in many cases, already been solved by somebody else. And it's a matter of figuring out who has done that and getting exposure. And for us, we see just the broader, at a certain credential and experience level, but the getting exposure to a diversity of experiences, learnings, knowledge, could be geography, practice areas. Just the more diversity of that you can bring, the higher the probability is that you're going to learn something you didn't know before in that setting. And our members are finding, and we're seeing it across the membership, it's just a powerful environment to be in, both emotionally from the I'm not alone standpoint, and tactically, I'm learning a bunch of things from other people in a way that's efficient. So I'm not having to reinvent every wheel
Yeah.
along this, really difficult journey.
Yeah, there's a legal tech that you don't know about, or there's a system for how to keep track of and follow up with people, or there's whatever it might be. But someone else is using it or doing it, and you're just not privy to that information. So you're just
Yep.
struggling and trying to figure it out yourself when it's already been done. Like business development, I have a process for it that takes people through every aspect of how to do it effectively, efficiently, wasting no time getting to the end. Yet most lawyers just want to muscle through it and figure it out
Yep.
on their own. And that's great. If they can do it, do it. If you're successful at that, do it. But there's other people that say, you know what? I just would rather, I'd rather buy the solution and save myself years of pain or save myself years of frustration, just getting to the answer. So I think crowdsourcing in this way is very similar, where we don't have to step in as facilitators and solve everything. We can kind of facilitate those conversations and let them solve it between themselves.
Absolutely. And it could be the whole way along that value chain of what you're working on within your firm, right? On the front end, how am I sourcing and finding and converting clients, to servicing them, to all the back office. And in billing. And, we see it in our membership where some folks want to learn to do all of that. And whether it's from peers or from experts like yourself, and crowdsourcing then and the peer interactions is a great way to do that. And in some cases, they they don't want to become an expert in every step in their the work that goes into their practice. And so being able to just get the answer from somebody who's already figured out whether that's a peer or an expert can be really valuable and satisfying, because a lot of folks have made this choice to run the type of firm they're running because they wanted more control or a lifestyle change, or like do more of the kind of work they were interested in. And if
Hmm.
you're hate sending out invoices, but you're having to spend a bunch of time doing that, and you just don't know about a faster solution, sometimes you're just like, hey, I want someone to give me that answer about what's the faster solution
Yeah.
so I can get back to the aspects that I enjoy and are the
Yeah.
reasons I'm doing this. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. It's a powerful tool.
So it might be interesting to share between you and I, since we're in similar spaces, different but similar, and it'll continue to come out as we discuss. But what are the topics that you're finding keep coming up within your groups? The things that are really troubling them, that they're finding
Yep.
difficult, that they're struggling with.
For sure. So we definitely see stuff along that whole value chain perspective from the front end all the way to the back end. But within that, really developing tactical, executable plans, and that start with goals and end in here are the things I need to do to get to those goals.
Hmm.
We're finding a lot of our folks have just really not had training on how to do that before.
Hmm.
They've been pretty reactive in their careers, and now they have to, they have the epiphany of I'm now a small business owner in addition to being a lawyer, and that can be painful for some folks.
Well,
And so, okay, well, how do I proactively run this business I'm in charge of?
yeah, I was going to just jump in and say the funny thing is, like, they worked at a big firm where the big firm said, "Hey, you got to turn in your plan for the year," and it was this form they filled out with the
Yep.
names of their clients and how they're going to spend their budget. And then it
Yep.
was like immediately shelved as soon as they started their year.
No, absolutely. And just not often at a tact. It was, and often they were more goals
Yeah, right. It
than
wasn't, you just said
they
the word.
weren't
It wasn't
actions.
tactical. It wasn't
Yeah.
tactical. And what do I have to do today, tomorrow, this week, this month to get where I need to go over the year?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that comes up in our groups quite a bit, is trying to talk about the difference between goals, which we think of as being objectives or outcomes, and the tactical plan of here are actions and the things I'm actually going to do and how I'm going to spend my time. And even just that framework is something that a lot of our folks have not had exposure to. And so having really good discussions. So that's one of the
You
big
know what?
areas.
Before we move on to the next one, Nathan, I just want to
Yep.
take one more minute on this because we talked about a book, Atomic Habits, and I know there's a book you're going to bring up at the
Yeah.
end when we do our game changing book. But are you also finding that it's less about like goals and objectives at the, like what's the big overarching thing, and more about the habits, more about the tactics and actions that happen on a day to day basis?
Absolutely. I would say, in my opinion, 2% about the goals and
Yeah.
98% about the systems and processes. And they can be as fancy or as simple as is relevant for your business. And I probably won't get this right, but that quote in Atomic Habits of, right, you don't rise to your goals, you sink to the level of your systems.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
our members live that all the time. And so it's about what are the things I'm doing. And so much of it is carving out time and being proactive about here are the actions I need to take to get to those goals. And I'm not going to sit around and wait for my calendar to magically open up where I have
Right.
6 hours free on a day, because
Right.
who has that? So it's like, hey, I need to take control of my time and my
Yeah.
effort. And those
Okay.
are the kind of discussions we get into. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And then what's another top challenge that keeps coming up in the groups?
Yeah. So really the right people to support, so there's that whole
Yeah.
chain
Yeah.
of things people need to do to run their firm. But outside of that, like what are the other right resources and people that are going to enable them to find the right clients, service their clients, learn and get better at running their business. And as we all know, it is one of the things that's really nice at a large firm is you have all those people in one place. As soon as you choose to go off and in a bit of a smaller environment, you own a lot more of the onus of finding the right people within your network or building your network to have
Yeah.
those people available to you. And we know it's time consuming and it's hard. And so that's a topic that comes up a lot.
And I'll add one piece to that, and we're not going to get ourselves into trouble with this, I hope. But a lot of the managing partners are complaining about the work ethic and the just the brain power, I think, of the younger generation coming out of law school. Like they're really scratching their heads as to their ability to handle some of the executive functioning, the project
Yep.
management, and I don't know what to make of that. I have a teenager, so I'm dealing with poor executive functioning on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The fact that he's been away for a week and will for the next 7 weeks, like every cabinet door is closed. There's no socks on the floor. Like my wife and I
Yeah.
are smiling at each other again. Love the kid, but geez, it sure is nice that he could take a break from us and vice versa.
Yeah.
But is that
No,
something that's coming up too? Like just the different generations and how they're kind of having
yeah.
challenges with each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that coupled with generally in this market, the economy is pretty strong. And so folks, that's one of within that bigger people bucket, the sub piece of finding and retaining the right people for your firm who are talented is one of the most common and repeated things we hear from our members and in these mastermind groups.
Yeah.
It's a difficult environment to even identify the right people, and then in many cases because of these generational differences, figuring out the levers to pull to engage them and retain them are different levers now than they were 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And so we see folks struggling with trying to think through that and having to be creative. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think one that sort of fits in with what you were sharing it may not come out as time management being the issue, but ultimately that's what it comes down to for many of them because they don't have the time to hire somebody. They don't have the time to do business development. They don't have the time to do certain things and create the processes and the systems that allow them to become more sustainably successful. And so I've always been, whether it's Atomic Habits or Getting Things Done by David Allen, whatever it might be, I'm like, this must be the most important thing for lawyers today, maybe beyond even business development or other stuff. Because if you don't have your time under control, then it's controlling you. And you're in your inbox all day and you're being controlled by your clients and you're being this, that, and the other. And so I'm continually working with lawyers on that, on the coaching and training side, but then it's continually coming up in our groups that they're just not as tight on the time management as they need to be.
No, 100%. And I think we've heard different hypotheses, I'm sure as everyone has, about why that's the case. If it's just more control through, from their parents along the way. But yeah, the ability of younger folks to step in without that training and pick up the time management piece is difficult. And then we certainly see in our membership, while our individual members have developed that, they had to over time, they haven't necessarily been trained on how to teach that to somebody else. And it's a very different thing, as you know, to know how to do it yourself. And
Yeah.
so we see that's a real challenge of as people bring on support staff, if they don't already or haven't intuited or built those time management skills themselves, how do you pass that along in a constructive, useful environment? And
Yeah.
that's a real challenge for sure.
Yeah. Well, so then we've talked about some problems. Let's
Yeah.
talk about some solutions. What would you say are the top one or two things that peer advisory mastermind groups do for your members? And I'll kick in with my thoughts on it when you're done, but that where they just can breathe again, or they can where they're able to really develop the law practice in a more efficient way, in a more interesting, fun way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so some of it is linking back to these problems and, like you said, getting solutions to them and
Yeah.
hearing, okay, what has worked from my peers who are living something similar to what I'm living. And I want to hear like a diversity of solutions so then I can go, internalize for myself which of those I want to test out or try or ones I've already tried that I know won't work. And so that environment of being able to hear not just one example, but maybe 10 is really powerful and been useful for our
Is
members.
and is there a way, because I know you have systems, right, and how you're running these and facilitating these, and I want to share one that I'm doing, but I want to hear
Please.
yours first, which is what's an example of a way that you're running a group that allows people to learn from each other and that facilitates that education.
For sure. So we do it, yeah, a couple different ways, and I don't think there's any one right way. But so one is people sharing specific experiences they've had, but doing it in a way where it's not about necessarily giving advice, because that's hard. You don't know other people's, but sharing your own experiences in both the good and the bad. So hearing what didn't work for somebody else, we're finding is probably even more powerful than hearing what did work for them, because it allows you to cut stuff off your list. Another way we've tried in some groups that has been really powerful is for folks to bring, just like you're talking about, books that have been meaningful or powerful or relevant for you, having folks bring resources to bear in these groups that have been useful for them, and how they've tactically implemented things from it. So, like we talked about atomic habits, that comes up a lot, and different things like that. And that's a powerful way for someone to have said, well, I've only read one book in the last month on my end, but I'm in a group where people are talking about 20 different resources. And so you get a lot of leverage when people are sharing about other learnings or points of interest they have.
Yeah. Something that we've been doing for years has been called the spotlight. And essentially it's one member brings a problem to the table,
Yeah, it's a great.
ferrets it out, like talks about it as long as they're able to without boring us. Then we don't. So now every lawyer in the room hears these problems and immediately wants to solve. And I absolutely will beat them down if they do it. I go, that's not what we're doing. We're going to take the time to ask questions. So we ask everybody ask questions. We ferret it out further, further, further. And once we've expired all the questions, then everybody's chomping at the bit to give their 2 cents about what are the suggestions. We end up with, like, let's say somewhere between 8 and 12 suggestions. And the person that's in the spotlight is absolutely floored because they didn't know how to resolve it at all. And now they've got 12 ideas. And I have them select from the 12. What do they think resonated with them? And then what can they actually accomplish between now and the next meeting, which is typically a month? And that exercise of putting people through that spotlight has been instrumental in someone deciding on taking a managing partner role or dropping a client or doing something different with how they're hiring associates. Like whatever the problem is, they're walking away with something that crowdsourced an answer or a variety of solutions that were potentially game changing for them. So I think it's this kind of stuff that you're doing and I'm doing that it makes it really fun and sort of like life altering for some in how they're rectifying issues that maybe have been haunting them for years.
Absolutely. I think it's so powerful to see people hear an idea or come figure out an answer that they either would never have gotten to on their own, or they're seeing, I might have gotten there on their own, but because of this environment, I'm getting there in a quarter of the time and a lot less painfully. And our members appreciate both of those aspects. Yeah, I love that spotlight
Yeah.
concept. That's a great way to do it.
And is there a networking component to what how you're, working with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So our community has over 500 people in it, and within that, the members are able to connect with each other. We do some, proactive networking events, but the members are able to find and be visible to each other and interact through search functionality and things like that whenever they want. And they can that kind of pot is always stirring all the time in the background, and then they're supplemented in these specific mastermind peer groups where that's their kind of small group within the bigger community, and that they hear and meet and get to know really well on a repeat basis. So you have the really kind of broad and less deep type of relationships, and then the really much more deep and focused relationships, and people can have a nice balance of both, which is great.
Yeah. Really interesting. So sort of wrapping it up before we get to our game changing book. I think you and I just both agree that there's a lot of different consultants. There's a lot of different programs. There's a lot of different things out there. I'm a big provisors guy, and
Yep.
people think that mastermind or peer advisory is provisors. It's absolutely not. This is a very, I mean, there is a networking component, but this is a lot of sharing experiences, a lot of learning, a lot of, very, sort of family style, trust in a confidential environment, and things like that. And I just, how would you sort of summarize it so people understand that this, is a unique, kind of a unique type of program?
Yeah, absolutely. No, great question. So it's particularly unique because, right, everybody who's involved is vetted partner level, right? So anytime you're interacting with someone, the initial work you do to figure out just like, does this person have the kind of background that's relevant for what I'm doing? That's what we've tried to solve. So we often think of ourselves as, right, we're specifically not for everybody. We're for a very specific group of people who typically have prior big firm experience, but are either solo or small firm now.
Yeah.
And it allows them to know, hey, I'm only interacting with other people who are relevant and can help me out directly or help my clients. And again, like that balance of I get the power of the full hundreds and hundreds of people that I can leverage, but I'm also developing these deep relationships for people who are particularly useful or relevant within my world and the things I'm trying to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really great stuff there, Nathan. And the game changing book that you brought up, as soon as you said the name of it, a lot of things went through my head. But I really wanted you to explain, because this is a book I'm seriously considering getting. And I don't read 100 books, 100 self help books a year or anything like that. I probably handpick 4 or 5 that 3, 4, 5 that I think are really good. This one's called Sleep. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's called Sleep by Nick Littlehales, and similar to like Atomic Habits, it is somebody who's taken and dug into the scientific research and then synthesized it for us normal humans and made it really actionable. And I was just, it blew me away. So many of the things I thought I knew or had been taught along the way about sleep, right? So you need 8 hours of sleep, or you should always wake up at this time or that time, or any of the things turned out to mostly not be true. And this guy works with most of the top like athletes in the world and sports firms now and different things like that. And so for me, it totally changed where you can, like so many things you learn in life, you can do less higher quality and get a lot more out of it. And so it's full of like really great tips and tools for getting better sleep, really more efficient, high quality in shorter periods of time. And
Yeah.
anyways, it's totally changed. I told you I bored my poor wife with it a bunch, but it's an eye opener, and I definitely recommend it.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to bore my wife with it.
Yeah,
So it's funny because I already bored her this morning talking about how much I move during my sleep, and is that affecting my sleep, the level of
yeah,
my sleep. And if you look it up on Google, guess what? Gives you 100 different answers. They're all
yeah.
saying yes and no. Crazy. Well, listen, let's wrap up with thanking our wonderful sponsors. We've got Lawmatics, who's just crushing it on helping law firms automate the way that they're going to, get their invoices out and get their contracts signed. And I've got everybody on ACH. I don't really take any checks, and I'm automating my follow-up so I don't have to reach out to everybody. It's automatically happening. So can't talk highly enough about Lawmatics. And then, of course, Get Staffed Up. So, time management is a beast, and we're not finding the right people to hire. Let Get Staffed Up do it for you, and you get this amazing VA in probably South America or Mexico, right? And just really, educated and able to speak multiple languages and help you do what you got to do. So that's what I'm up to. Nathan, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn more about you and Newly, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our Newly's how you pronounce it, how you spell it is Nuooly, and Newly.com is our website, and people can visit us there. And then people are welcome to email me directly. It's just Nathan@Newly.com. So very simple. Please
Yeah.
reach out anytime.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to keep, and I say this, fully embracing that, we have a lot in common, and I think there's a lot of things we could do. There's people that aren't a fit for me and aren't a fit for you, and we got to keep that going. But I just think we're just very much alike in our drive for what we're doing and how we're helping the legal market. And so let's keep in touch, man. I'd like that.
Absolutely. I love what you're doing, and I'm passionate about helping folks in this market.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for spending some time with Nathan and I today on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. We are continuing to help you to be that lawyer, someone who's confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. And we look to have you come back. If you're loving the show, don't be shy. Tell people about it. It's okay. And also give us a kind review on whatever format you're on. And that's it, everybody. Take care. Be safe. Be well. We will talk again very soon.